All right, if we're ready, Mrs. Ford, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would you call the roll, please?
Chairman Wingate,
Here.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Here.
Dr. Hollander,
Here.
Mrs. Hill,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Here.
Mrs. Lennon,
Here.
Mr. McClendon,
Here.
Mrs. Robinson,
Here.
Mrs. Thurman,
Here.
Superintendent Dr. Johnson.
Here.
All right, before I read the amendments that we have tonight, I just wanted to address, make this clear to the public, and I know I'd sent this out to other board members and folks involved in the meeting. Just I want to address the recent decision made to return our board meetings to a virtual format. Our previous meetings have allowed for those who wish to meet in person to do so, and meetings in the month of June, as you all know, proceeded with a hybrid approach, which accommodated individuals in the boardroom and also those that wanted to attend remotely. And that format was intended to address the meeting preferences of all who wish to engage with board meetings. However, our technology team has had much difficulty being able to deliver the adequate sound needed both in the boardroom and to members of the board who have engaged remotely. And it's also been an issue and been noted that the delivery of some electronic presentations at meetings that we're receiving, along with the live streaming of the meetings to the public, has been more than our current equipment and technology could handle coming through one machine. It's not allowed the public to engage in the board meetings in an acceptable manner. So we will proceed in this manner either until state of emergency is lifted or until we can acquire the proper equipment or a way to work around our difficulties. And I had some more discussion with Mrs. Ford today on that, and we can talk about that a little bit later. I think they may have found a solution to that. So as soon as we do, I will make sure to let you all know that. I also wanted to make sure to let the public know that, because obviously we've been getting some feedback around school starting, yet we're still meeting virtually. And the reason, again, that we're meeting virtually is because of those difficulties that we've had trying to mesh all the technologies to be able to get that out. So, all right, let me read these amendments. We've got the following amendments. If you've got your agenda handy there, we're going to, under the consent agenda, remove item Roman numeral 6D under the Chief of Innovation and Choice. That's the grant application request for that USDA, that federal grant for distance learning and telemedicine. And then also under Roman numeral 7, our administrative business matters, we would like, there's been a request to add the bid extension for the solid waste collection, both the removal and disposal, and that has been requested by Mr. Justin Witt. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I think
I did,
Mrs.
Sherry.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if you would, let's quickly stand for our pledge.
I need to call the roll.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Ford.
Okay, Dr. Hollander,
Here.
this is for the vote.
Correct, for approval of the agenda. Yes
Dr.
or no,
Hollander?
Dr. Hollander?
Yes.
Yes. Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. If you would, please, let's now stand for our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all. We'll now move to our presentation here from Dr. Dale Lynch. Go ahead, Dr. Lynch.
Thank you very much. I certainly appreciate it. And again, I apologize for not being in the office, or actually being in the office at my home. I was traveling and meeting with new superintendents in Southeast today, and tried to work my schedule where I could see you all in person and be in person. However, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be with you all through this Zoom meeting. It gives me a great deal of privilege to be the executive director of TOSS, but more importantly, to work with superintendents across our state. And on behalf of our association, I certainly want to say thank you to the Hamilton County School Board. You are surely a shining star when it comes to what you have been able to do in your school system, and also through the incredible relationship that you have built with your superintendent, Dr. Johnson. As a superintendent for almost 20 years in Tennessee, I can tell you there's the most important job I think that the school board has, as well as the superintendent or director of schools, is building that strong relationship so that the teachers, the administrators, and most importantly, the entire community can see how you work well together. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't work with Dr. Johnson and he is not complimenting his Board of Education. So kudos to the board. But the reason I am here this evening, obviously, is to say thank you, but more importantly than that, to say congratulations to your director of schools, or to your superintendent. Dr. Brian Johnson, and I do want to show you this, and I'm going to be handing this to him in person. Dr. Brian Johnson has been recognized by his peers, and as you all know, there's probably not a greater accomplishment that one can receive than to be recognized for an outstanding leader by his peers. And Dr. Johnson has been named the 2021 Southeast Tennessee Superintendent of the Year. Hamilton County Schools is doing an outstanding job, and Dr. Johnson, on behalf of the entire Superintendents Association and TOSS, we want to say congratulations for a job well done, and look forward to continue working with you for many years. But you are also a finalist now in the Tennessee Superintendent of the Year program. So thank you, Hamilton County Board of Education. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Keep up the great work. The only thing I would say, I heard you say early that you felt like you were almost 60 years old. There's not a thing wrong with being 60 years old, Dr. Johnson. Congratulations. We're proud of you, and thank you for all that you're doing for boys and girls, not just in Hamilton County, but across our entire great state of Tennessee. Hamilton County Board of Education, congratulations to you too. Thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dale. And I would just say, if I could, the award goes to our entire school system. The school board has been just phenomenal during my tenure, and our teachers and leaders and support staff. It takes everybody to make our district go and to support children. So thank you, Dale, for the work that you do, and thank you, board, for your leadership and vision and ability to serve. Thank you.
I have one favor to ask. I want to come back to your board meeting, and I want to see you and see everyone in person. Can I do that sometime when we get through this COVID mess?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Congratulations. Thank you, and good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Lynch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs.
Congratulations,
Robinson.
Congratulations again, Dr. Johnson.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Mrs. Robinson, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say congratulations to Dr. Johnson. I mean, it's such an honor to work with you. And I mean, we hit the jackpot whenever we scored you as our superintendent, and clearly the state knows that too. So just want to tell you thank you for all that you do for our community, especially right now in light of everything that's going on. I'm just incredibly impressed with your leadership skills, your team's leadership skills. And I mean, just we're in great hands with you. So this award is so well deserved. And I, like I said before, I'm just grateful to work with you. Congratulations.
Mr. Smith.
Hey, look here. He looks 60 years old to me. Look at him. Him white whiskers. Congratulations, Dr. Johnson. Mr. Lynch, go ahead and present the State Superintendent of the Year, and it'll save you a trip. Congratulations, Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, congratulations, Dr. Johnson.
This is
Thank
Hill.
you.
I think my esteemed colleague, Joe Smith, has the right idea. You might as well just stick around, Dale, because we are so fortunate to have Brian Johnson heading our system. you know, Brian, you talked about how it takes everybody, and without a doubt, our teachers and our leaders are working differently because of you. And the amount of change you brought to our system, it takes the right kind of leader to help everybody get through the white knuckle and move forward into the time of really being able to see the results of all their efforts. So you've got some special talents, and it's a joy to work with you in this season of your life. So thank you.
I have to agree. You're turning this big ship around, and I think it's moving in the right direction. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your commitment to all the students, teachers, and to our community. We're very blessed to have your leadership and your servant heart in Hamilton County. Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson.
Yeah.
May I close with one word?
Sure.
I have the opportunity to travel across the state and work with over 140 superintendents, 146 and boards of education. And it is very obvious that this director of schools and superintendent knows how to lead, but it's also very obvious that this board of education knows how to make sure they uplift their superintendent or director of schools. Again, you all are the epitome of what a good relationship is about. So congratulations. I'm going to leave the meeting. I hope you feel good, because I feel great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lynch.
Thank you.
Before we move on, I just want to say too, you know, when I first got on the board, two things I was really screaming the loudest about were just change and leadership, and leadership in at all levels of our school system. And I'm thankful that Dr. Johnson is here. I'm thankful for the change that we've had. I'm thankful for his leadership and how that trickles down and affects other leaders in our organization, and how they begin to also impact children. So again, it is a well-deserved honor, and thank you so much for your service and your willingness to come serve here. So thank you, sir. All right, that gets us to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Got it.
Did you get it? Okay. Do we have any items we'd like to take a look at? All right. We don't have any items. We'll vote.
Okay, Dr. Hollander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yeah.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Okay, that brings us down to our administrative business matters. First item there would be the teachers who are eligible for reinstatement of tenure, as we took a look at that on Monday night. Do I have a motion to approve that item?
Move to approve.
Second.
Got it.
All right, we have any discussion around that item?
Hey, Joe,
Yes, sir.
I asked a question the other night that I'm still not sure. It might have been answered, and I just didn't understand it. Is there a cap on that time? So, for example, if a teacher leaves and he or she is gone for 10 years, do they still come back and get that same tenure? I'm still not sure I understand how that works.
Mr. Fogelman, can you address that? Or Miss Murray?
I can, yes. So if a teacher leaves, there's no cap on the time. They just have to return and work for us and be successful for 2 years before it reattaches.
State law.
Correct.
Well, I'm not so sure that's a good state law, but I understand what you're saying. That explains it. But boy, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If somebody leaves for years and then comes back. I mean, I don't know any industry in the world does that.
The state does it. The state, you do it if you're a state employee, you can return and pick up your tenure.
And you said they've got to have 2 years of good performance before they're.
Hang on a second, Dr. Hollander. Go ahead, Mrs. Jones.
No, I was just saying, I know that after a certain amount of years, if you're employed by the state and you leave and you come back, you're eligible to pick up that time to continue on towards your Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System stuff.
Dr. Hollander.
To answer Joe's question, I understand what he's saying, but they do have to effectively work and be positive for 2 full years. So if they don't show, if they show they're worthy of it, to give it. If they don't show they're worthy, we don't have to. Is that right, Ms. Murray?
That's exactly right. And we monitor it. So anytime a previously tenured employee returns to us, we make a notation of that. And so the principals are aware. And so it also has to go along with principal recommendation too.
Well, that's probably very different than it's done in the private sector. And I understand what Chris has said about, you know, a government employee, but I don't know about that, but okay, I got you. I understand.
Well, and Mr. Smith, as a practical matter, what typically happens is you might go from one school system to another school system where you're still teaching, you're still improving your craft and getting better. And then you come back to your home school system. In theory, it could be you leave education for years, but more likely than not, what we're talking about are people who move maybe to Bradley County for a coaching job, and then maybe to Georgia for a coaching job, and then back here. So, but your point's well taken, in which case, you know, you'd hope that maybe we wouldn't hire them back, or having hired them back, you're scrutinizing them like Ms. Murray has said, so that they don't get those good evaluations. But yeah, that's the system.
That system ought to be looked at, in my opinion.
All right, do we have any other discussion around this item? Okay, Mrs. Ford.
Dr. Hollander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Okay, I'm sorry, Dr. Hollander, Mrs. Hill. Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, before we look at the next item, and I apologize, I intended to do this at the beginning, but please, if you would, guys, I know it's a whole different format and we've all struggled with this a little bit, but if you would, before you speak, try to raise your hand either virtually there electronically or hold it up in the screen, and I will jot you down in the order that I see, okay? All right, let's get to item B there, which is going to be the teacher laptops, the lease agreement. Do I have a motion to approve that item?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
All right, do we have any discussion around this item? Okay,
Just
go ahead, Mrs. Hill, and then Ms. Thurman.
I know that as we looked at what is a very difficult budget year, that this felt like an important decision and an important investment, and I agree that it is. What we've seen with this board's forethought of making the decision to go one-to-one with our middle school and high school students has shown how important it was when we had to move into remote learning. I have witnessed these teacher laptops crumbling and freezing, and I think it is the appropriate choice for us to move into this lease agreement so that our teachers are able to be as nimble as they need to be with the realities of our world right now.
Mrs. Thurman?
I think, sorry.
You're muted. There you go.
Muted again, Rhonda.
I'm sorry, I think Tucker was before me. Sorry, Tucker. Okay, well, anyway, I just wondered, were we able to use any of the CARES money for this since it was related, or no? I don't have it in front of me, so I can check it. I mean, if we did, it's fine. I just wondered if we were able to get some assistance with that. Could we use the CARES money for something like that?
Dr. Johnson, can you answer
For the
that?
teacher laptops?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I was just late coming back in. The CARES money, we have 2 million set aside for student laptops, but we did not have any additional funding for teacher laptops.
Okay.
We also would prefer to do the teacher laptops, I think, through general purpose, just because we want to get these onto a plan where we refresh them every 4 years, so we're not running around trying to find the money.
Okay, that's fine. I was just wondering. Thanks.
Mr. McClendon.
Is there, I was trying to read it. I had it pulled up on Monday. What's the responsibility on the teacher, kind of like with a student laptop? Do they have an insurance policy on it or whatnot? I thought I saw something about like a warranty or something like that, but now I can't pull it up or find it.
Yeah, the only responsibility on the teacher would be like any other school property, just to treat it, normally and with normal wear and tear. Because it's school property, and because we have employees using the devices, they're insured under our normal insurance.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comment? Oh, Mrs. Lennon.
I just want to make sure that I'm reading it. It says for all to lease 3,515 for all teachers district-wide. So Brent, that's all teachers across the district are going to get a laptop, correct?
Yes, ma'am. The number includes all teachers and some other positions that Ben Coulter put a list together that had every teacher that needed a laptop, as well as some other people who we haven't purchased laptops for the past 4 years.
Will any of the support staff?
It depends on when their computer was replaced most recently. So secretaries in schools, for example, use desktops, not laptops. This is primarily for teachers and coaches and those sorts of things.
And when will they be getting them? What's the date? Oh, I see here. I'm sorry.
They're going to be phased between September and December.
Okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yeah, I just wonder what we're going to do with all the old laptops, because there's going to be a windfall of old laptops coming in. I would think a few thousand anyway. So do we have a plan for those, or what are we going to do with them?
Yeah, so we're currently evaluating that. We'll have over 3,000 laptops that we will either try to sell to the highest bidder or work with the vendor to trade them in to go against our next purchase.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? All right, Mrs. Ford.
Dr. Hollander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, that brings us there to item C, which includes policies that are all first read. Do we have any discussion or question about any of those policies that are up for first read? Mrs. Thurman.
Yeah, Scott, the other day you said something about working on a new policy about the use of computers and other school, I guess it was just strictly computers. I'm not real sure exactly what you said about using them for things other than school activities. When do you expect that policy to be ready? And
Sure. So what we were talking about was a code of conduct policy that discusses more broadly how what the board expects of all of its employees, and that would include how they would be behaving online. So maybe I misunderstood what we were talking about on Monday when I was addressing that comment, but that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
You and
Okay.
I also talked about the use of public property, whether it's computers or our email system in connection with elections. And we talked about how that's prohibited by the Little Hatch Act under state law.
Right. So we don't have that in our policy anywhere. We just rely on state
No,
law.
that's actually prohibited under in another section. And if you give me a minute, I'll find it.
Well, that's okay. You can just text it to me or something.
Sure.
Because I couldn't seem to locate it. I know it's there because we've had a couple to get in trouble over that. So I just was wondering where it was. I couldn't seem to locate it. Okay, thank you. You can just let me know.
Surely.
Mr. McClendon.
Scott, on or Makia, on 5.6 staff right and responsibilities, the last page, the second page, the use of social media and social networking sites, that new added paragraph there, it just seems very vague and talks about reasonable and appropriate discretion. It kind of goes back to that thing that we've talked about in the past, you know, how is that going to be uniform?
So
across
that's a great question, Mr. McClendon, and Ms. Murray may want to weigh in on this because she and I were talking about this, and Mary was involved in this too. One of the concerns that I have, anytime you start making any kind of reference to professionalism more specific, is that the more specific you make it, the less useful it is to your next situation. So if you draw a policy that's calculated to address things that are concerning you right now, then you run the risk of leaving out things that don't fit neatly into your loop. So because our expectations of our staff are to be professional and not to compromise their roles as leaders within the community, we draw this language in such a way that it's aspirational, it's broad, rather than narrow and specific. That helps me in those situations where, unfortunately, I might have to litigate whether someone has violated the board's expectations. And so I like this broad language because it helps me establish in the most all-encompassing terms the high standards this board sets. Now, in the conversations that we had with Ms. Murray, there were some specific thoughts about, well, should we have somewhere in our policy document the specific expectations of this board? And so that's why we came up with the idea of having a code of professional conduct, which will be a new policy that tips its hat, for starters, to the teacher's code of ethics, but specifically underscores some of the specific principles that we deal with from an HR perspective on a regular basis. And we also will take those and we will apply them to all of your employees who have contact with students, not just teachers. That's one thing that I think, frankly, is missing right now. Everyone knows that teachers are held to a certain standard because of state law, but your policy manual is silent about what you expect your educational assistants to do. So this will give us an opportunity to somewhat more specifically drill down to, we expect teachers educators to be professional, and what does that look like?
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, and any of the other policies you'd like to ask a question about? Dr. Hollander.
I'd like to ask Mr. Bennett, are we in any form in violation of First Amendment rights? I mean, I know obviously they can't do this on a school computer, but if they use something other than that, are we in any chance violating First Amendment rights?
Dr. Hollander, that's a great question. And that's actually the reason that the language in policy 5600 is drawn so broadly. One of the other concerns about having much more specific language is that you run into what First Amendment lawyers call prior restraint. So you go to censoring someone's speech before they've actually spoken it, which is, again, is one of the reasons that we have to have relatively broad aspirational terms rather than specific language. This is one of the things that many, many years ago, local boards tried to regulate, and they got sued quite a bit. And so over the last 20 years, we've defaulted to this kind of language rather than the specific stuff that we used to do. But that also underscores the need that our employees be guided by a code of professional conduct, which again is something that we're working on.
Thank you.
Great question.
All right. Anybody else on these policies here? Okay. All right. That brings us down to item D there under Chief Operations. The first item would be D1, approval for renewal to Erlanger for our high school athletic training program. Do I have a motion to approve that item? I see Dr. Hollander's hand there.
So moved, Joe.
Okay, and a second by Mr. Smith.
Good.
All right, Dr. Hollander, go ahead.
And I do think we should do this, but I do want our public to realize that if athletics are cut out or if they're cut back, that we was explained to us Monday evening in the work session that their fees will be prorated. We will not be paying the full amount. So we're trying to be guardians of the taxpayer dollar. And thank you all for that explanation. I just want our public to understand that too. Thank you.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. So what Steve said is exactly what I wanted the public to understand, that we weren't going to pay them if they weren't going to be working. So just be sure that was clear.
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Well, I would just like to also add, and I think Steve and Rhonda's point's important, but Erlanger Medical Center gives away millions and millions of dollars of health care to the Hamilton County community every year. So I just wanted that to be just kind of a side note. So so I'm glad to renew this contract for them to provide services for our young athletes all across the county.
All right, I think we're ready, Mrs. Ford.
Dr. Hollander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Our next item there is the Code of Acceptable Behavior. We saw some changes to that code on Monday night. Do we have a motion to approve the Code of Acceptable Behavior for 2021?
Move to approve.
Second.
I think Mrs. Jones had the second.
Okay.
All right. Any discussion?
I have a question. I'm sorry, I couldn't.
All
figure
right,
out
hang
how
on a
to-
second, Tiffany. Mrs.
Okay,
Thurman,
no
go ahead,
problem.
and I'll get to
Let Tiffany go ahead. I'm fine.
All right, go ahead, Ms. Robinson.
Sure, and I apologize. I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand. I just wanted to confirm: is this code of acceptable behavior for K through 12, or is this solely for high school?
No, ma'am. This code of acceptable behavior is for middle school and high school, so it's grades 6 through 12.
Okay. Do we have an ETA on when the elementary school code of acceptable behavior will be rolled out? I remember last school year asking about this a few times, and a lot has happened in the last 4 months. So I could have absolutely like just forgotten that we've already looked at this, but have we approved and reviewed the elementary school code of behavior?
We have a behavior manual for elementary school, and that has been approved. That was ready in I think January. So we have that.
Okay.
So I think to expand on Dr. Drake's point, it does not look like the code of acceptable behavior, which really just defines behaviors and consequences. And Dr. Drake might want to talk a little bit more about our approach in K-5 is different in terms of the way that we're trying to remediate and address behavior. So I guess I would clarify, and Dr. Drake expand upon that, but I would clarify is the feedback that Ms. Robinson is getting or other board members are getting are that people want consequences, suspension language, etc. for K-5?
I'm sorry, are you asking? Was that a question?
I'm asking,
okay.
Is that what, is that because what we produced was actually something different?
Right.
Yes.
What we produce is more of teaching acceptable behaviors to our K-5 students. And then we have some classes where they would go and get some intensive learning in those areas throughout the system, as well as we have behavioral coaches, and we work on positive behavior reinforcement.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I think that I personally think that's a the right approach. The reason why I've asked about this today and just in previous meetings is because I have had feedback from principals in my district that they would really prefer, a standard code of acceptable behavior for their school, because, they have felt in the past that it was not clear on the action that they should take. Now, in the last several months, because we have not had school since March, that their mindset on this may have changed. I don't have up-to-date feedback. So probably the last round of feedback I received on this was probably December or January. But like I said, a lot's happened in the last few months and we haven't really been with students. So I think that if principals are receiving this and they understand what to do with it and they're happy with it, then I think that that's a great approach.
Okay. We do have that manual, and I can share that manual with you and our approach and talk to you about some of the positive reinforcements, RTI behavior squared, as well as, they still have the option of the consequences that they can enforce within their schools. But our main focus is on teaching the appropriate behaviors in the school and to teach them how, because once they are in middle and high school, there are just the consequences. But we focus more on teaching the appropriate behaviors and expectations for school.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, go ahead, Mrs. Thurman.
I just want to, I really appreciate the work on this, and I appreciate it's ongoing. And I want a lot of people to know there were a lot of problems, I think, with the initial code of acceptable behavior, but we just didn't know what the problems were until it became, things look better on paper sometimes than in practice. So I'm glad to see we have made some changes, because some of the changes we've made in some of the complaints that I've received from principals and teachers. So I'm glad to see that, and I hope we just continue working through some of the things that come along. This is not set in stone. I think it's something we can work on along the way. So if teachers or principals see something here that maybe we do not see because we're not in the classroom and don't see how this really affects teachers and the principals in the school, if they would just let us know, maybe it's something we get with Dr. Johnson and tell Dr. Johnson, and maybe we can work through some of those other problems.
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but like I always say, it's kind of like getting buses removed. But just consistency is the key. And every afternoon when I sit down there with those white cap kids that come from different schools, and they're the troubled kids, they're the kids that are getting in trouble and getting suspended and that kind of thing. And they talk amongst themselves, and I mean, it's just critical that's what's done at Howard and what's done at Hickson and what's done at Soddy and what's done at Brainerd. It's just got to be consistent, because these young people, they're sharp. They know what's going on. So I just encourage our staff, as you're training those principals, that consistency, I think, is so vitally important.
Dr. Hollander, and then I'll defer to Dr. Robertson there.
I'll just amen what Joe said. It needs to be consistent across the board to every school in the county. And we need to be sure that our administrators and teachers follow through with consistent relations with the students throughout the county. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dr. Robertson.
Yeah, Chairman Wingate, I just wanted to, publicly thank the committee that worked on this, Ms. Thurman, for helping us as a board member. And, to Mr. Smith's point, the intent of this, and really teachers should not feel the impact of it. The intent is to ensure consistency and that we're reducing the variability across the district. So just wanted to say thank you to the committee and Ms. Thurman's help. And as always, appreciate Mr. Smith throwing in the buses.
All right. I think we're ready, Mrs. Ford.
Dr. Highlander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Okay, then that brings us here to this bid extension for solid waste. Do we have a motion to approve that item?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, Mr. McClendon.
I remember this contract from last year. I voted against it just because I don't know if we should keep contracts for 7-8 years without putting them back out for bid again. Same problems. It still has all of old facilities in it. Birchwood, the old East Brainerd, John Allen, Tinywood, that are still saying they're getting service. I know last year you said that it was not getting service still, but I just don't like voting on something that's not reflective of what the actual service is. So I just wanted to point that out again. I know it goes through, I think, 2021, the contract can go through without another bid. But I just think if we're going to at least vote on it every year, it needs to be updated to our current facilities.
Mr. Witt, do you want to address that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman Wingate. And I think, Ms. Ford, I sent a spreadsheet that I don't.
It was.
I did send it late.
You did.
Yeah, we crunched a lot of numbers, Tucker. I remember that from last year. Apologize for sending.
I'll send it to all the board.
Okay. We did send it late, and I apologize, but we did crunch some numbers, and so we did update that list. And I guess it didn't make it on the agenda, but I did crunch some numbers. What we spent last year, we spent $344,733. I'm requesting the PO amount this year to be $400,000. If you look back at the 2013 RFP, it was originally $393,000, and I think that's a combination of working with BFI. We've implemented several recycling programs. We've, I think, a combination of that and some escalation prices in fuel costs. So I would say that they provided some really good service and have provided some other programs since we've been working with them. So I would highly recommend we extend this contract, and this is the last year that we have the option to extend it.
Mrs. Thurman.
I was under the impression we couldn't do any contracts longer than 4 years. Did you say that was back in 2013? I thought that was the longest we could do a contract was 4 years.
Yeah, the way it was worded was base contract for 4 years with an additional 48-month period, and they actually did 1-year contracts in increments.
So, Ms. Thurman, you're right. You can enter into a contract for the length of a board member's term, but so the bid preserve so there's how long of a contract you can enter into, but there's also the bigger question, when do you have to rebid something? So like Mr. Witt said, there's a base contract of 4 years, but you've got the right to continue that contract if it's in the economic interests of the board. And so that criteria. The other question would be, would you need to bid it out again? And the answer is no, where the base proposal let everybody know that there's a potential that this thing could be for 8 years. So it's two separate questions.
Okay, well, it looks like during that time, surely we could clean the contract up, like Tucker said, and just don't be voting on something that we really don't need. I just don't know why we can't clean the contract up a little bit before we vote on it and get it fixed. But you say you have done that. Is that what you said, Justin?
I did. And I apologize. I did send it late. We have so many. There's escalation, fuel escalations. There's again, we've implemented a lot of recycling programs. It's actually saved money. Again, when we bid this in 2013, the original bid was $393,000. Last year we spent $344,000. And I'm requesting that we normally do a not to exceed purchase order of $400,000. So in the 7 years time, we're looking at a 2% increase over 7 years.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other discussion there around that item? Go ahead, Mrs. Hill.
Sherry resent that document. It's at the spreadsheet is at the very, very end of that 72 pages. You just have to keep going. And it's looks like 4 pages worth of spreadsheet. Folks are looking.
All right, Mr. Smith.
There we go. Mr. Chairman, I probably totally unrelated, but it always comes to mind to me when we talk about waste is the amount that the city of Chattanooga charges us for wastewater runoff, and that always comes to mind for me anytime we're talking about waste. And I know that Brent is probably on top of that, but it sure looks to me like the city would help us with that wastewater runoff. Again, I know that's totally unrelated what we're talking about here, but I want to repeat that again while we're talking about waste. Brent, don't let that go to sleep. Stay on the city. They need to help us with that big bill we have to pay for wastewater runoff. Thank you, Joe.
Mr. Smith, I bring it up every time I talk to someone from the city, but they keep telling me no.
You need to take Mr. Smith with you. All right, any other discussion around that? Okay, Mrs. Ford.
Dr. Hollander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Before we get ready to adjourn and talk about any announcements, as you all remember at our last board meeting, Mrs. Hill spoke pretty passionately about the recent national attention and conversation around social injustice and suggested some possible board training. And I have been and will continue to look at what she suggested. And I have spent much time reflecting about that. And I'd like to just share my thoughts with you right now. This board, since I've been a part of it, has been proactive and not reactive. This board has sought to improve the school system so that it increasingly adds value to the county. And all of that work has been centered around a plan. Our plan, the strategic plan, Future Ready 2023. It was created by this board to improve all aspects of our school system. You all know that in many ways, our school system was in triage, more brush fires that could be simultaneously addressed. Woeful academic performance, lagging graduation rates, inconsistent discipline, underperforming transportation, inadequate, overcrowded, dilapidated facilities, lack of a consistent policy review, no financial strategy or vision, lack of meaningful engagement with business and industry, and at the time, hemorrhaging some talented educators. The strategic plan of this board, this current school board, addresses all of these issues and much more. You all know, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but this plan has yielded much fruit, such as the $121 million in scholarship dollars that was just offered to the class of 2020, which was an all-time high. Our 32 reward schools, 45 level 5 schools, being able to move from ranking 130th in the state to number 2 in the state in academic growth, being recognized as a world leader in digital fabrication, having 2 of the last 3 state principals of the year, 7 high schools ranked in the top 100 by U.S. News and World Report, and graduation rates that are the highest they've been since 2013, and probably at an all-time high since more rigorous diploma requirements. Our strategic plan, its intent was also to begin to address equity, meaning meeting the diverse and the specific needs of all of the children in our county. We have focused as a board on closing the opportunity gap and working through this strategic plan. We've had an Office of Equity that's been established. Through that office, resources have been allocated in a more equitable way. We've also had more intense intervention that's been provided for some of our neediest learners and increased supports for the whole child. And you all also know, and I think you believe like I do, that there's much more work to be done. And I want to be clear on this. I personally will not tolerate or condone racial injustice in any form, in any corner of this county. But I want to also be clear that this is not a political moment. We have had some pre-planned and calculated work that we've accomplished, and we are pursuing to make this school system the best that it can be. And this must be handled with intentionality. Our children, our community, they're counting on us as public servants. And in my opinion, this is a conversation that we need to have collectively face to face. So over the next few weeks, I'd like to ask each of you all to reflect on ways, you, my colleagues, that we can continue to close the opportunity gap for all of our children. And it's my goal as a member of this board to make sure that all students and families in Hamilton County have the same opportunities for access to academic excellence. If there are inequities, injustices, barriers, or gaps that exist in the structure, the function, or the operation of the school system, then they must be addressed to ensure that all of our children graduate ready for their futures. I'm asking Ms. Ford to find us a date in the next few weeks to meet as a board, and also with Dr. Drake and her team to have further discussion and determine what our next steps need to be as a board. And I wanted to make sure that I communicated that to you all. I felt it was timely, and we all have the issue of getting school reopened that has been the forefront of what we're doing. And I know that you all know that there's been a lot of work around that, and I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to start school and start as smoothly as possible. But I also know August is probably going to be a little bit of a ride too. But I wanted to make sure that I address that. And so I ask you all again to be able to do that, start thinking in that direction. And I want us to be able to have face-to-face personal conversation that begins with this board when we start to think about closing that opportunity gap for everybody in the county. Mrs. Hill.
Joe, you are often a man of few words, and I want you to know how much I appreciate it when you elevate your voice and share with us your thoughts. I appreciate your service, and I thank you for pushing for us all to meet together to talk about this more. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it too.
Mrs. Robinson.
I'll also echo the similar comments that Jenny made. Just, thank you very much for making this a point for our board to discuss. I do want to just stress how important, though, this conversation is face-to-face. I don't feel like this kind of conversation can be had over Zoom. And so I really encourage everyone to be present for this meeting. I also feel like it's very important that we all put time into creating the list that Chairman Wingate asked us to put time and thought into, because we all, come from districts that have some form of inequities. And we each bring a different view to this board that is the representation from our constituents. And so I know that I will be coming very ready for this meeting with my list. And I just, I encourage everyone to put everything on paper and, let's not hold back. Let's really figure out how we can really use this time and really this moment in time to tackle the problems that our students face the most. So thank you, Chairman. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank you for continuing to lead our board in the direction that we need to go, and of course in addressing the meeting and what was said last board meeting. I know for several people, and I can speak for myself, but for several people that that was a very I don't even know how to say it. That was a very that was quite an experience for some of us, and so I think the conversation that was said today, or what you shared today, actually helps to continue myself, a member and a person of color who has had those experiences before, show the support of what Jenny has shared in her expression, and of course what we're trying to do as a board with our strategic plan. I want to say once again, as a board member and a constituent who has experienced some inequities growing up and still currently, that I want us to be authentic in what we do. Like, I don't want anybody to come to the table with some fluff, because fluff doesn't move you forward. Fluff just kind of smooth stuff over and people think it's going to die down forward. But this issue, these issues of inequities that we know that are in our system across the districts, all 9, we have to address, and we have to be authentic in addressing them and being able to face them and be courageous enough to have the conversation we need to have to move forward. And I'm saying that to my peers on the board, but I also want that the public to know and my constituents to know that that's where I am and that's the space that I'm in, and I'm not in the business of actually having conversations anymore about with people who say the same thing that I believe but don't have those actions behind that. And so I just want everybody to know that's where I'm going to be coming from, and that's just the place that I'm at now in my 39 years of life. Like, you say you believe what I believe and you say you want what's best for all children, then you have your actions show that as well. It's all easy to say something, but it's more work to back it up. And so I just want to thank each and every one of you all for whatever you're going to bring to the table. And I appreciate what you all have done in the past, but I really feel like this is a time now that we have to be forward and to show the people of Hamilton County that we are genuine and authentic in the work that we continue to do, because our strategic plan, of course, has spoken for itself. We have a leader that his actions speak for himself, for themselves, and the cabinet, and we are. So we have to continue to push that forward. And this is just a tough topic, but I believe that we all can do that and move this board forward and move the district forward the way we need it to go.
Thank you. All right, do we have any announcements that we need to make? Obviously, we don't have any listed here on our agenda, but Dr. Johnson, anything you or your team would like to make us aware of coming up?
Well, board, I appreciate your conversation around equity and ensuring that we really remove the structural barriers that exist. I do want to just mention our COVID-19 update, I guess. Just a couple of things I know you all know, but just want to say to the public, we are tracking cases daily. And unfortunately in our community, the thing I want to elevate in this moment is that it is important that we do what we need to do as a community to reduce the cases. We're in a serious situation in regards to our case increase. Our cases have continued to rise as a community, and the wearing of masks, the distancing, the washing of hands, and good hygiene that's necessary. Those things are really, really critical. Our cases, our active cases have reached a high watermark. Our hospitalizations have reached a high watermark, and obviously ICU has followed. And so we're watching it closely every single day. We'll be doing a daily update, to the community. There's been a lot of conversation about what phase are you starting school in. We don't want to prematurely make that decision. We're going to let the data, drive us in regards to where we need to go. A month ago or 2 weeks ago, we were at below 1,000 cases, at 950 cases when we presented this a couple of weeks ago, and obviously today we're approaching 1,500. So just to update again that we're watching it every single day, and we'll obviously keep you apprised as we get that data and share it with the public as well as the health department releases it.
Okay, Mrs. Thurman.
Yeah, Dr. Johnson, I've been told that a lot of our cases are not from Hamilton County. A lot of people come to Erlanger and our area hospitals from other counties. So I don't want to get our numbers skewed, but other people from other counties. Also, I asked you about the age groups of some of the cases. Of course, they've tested a whole lot more. I think we had a record of the number of people we tested as well. So the more people you test, the more you're going to find out has it. So that's pretty much common sense. But you said 21% were between 0 and 21. But we deal with the ages of 5 to 17, 5 to 17 basically in the school. So just those are the kinds of things we need to keep in mind as well. But if we're and then also in the hospitals, the same thing. Hospitalizations are some of those people are not from Hamilton County. They're from surrounding counties, and the recovery rate seems to be, better treatment, earlier treatment, things like that. A little bit more how to handle it, because this whole thing started, to keep from overcrowding the hospitals. And I read the health department website the other day, and they said, we were nowhere near, having to worry about capacity in the hospital. So that's another thing we need to keep in mind as well, I think. And then too, you say we can't wait till the last minute to tell parents what to do. We need to be very mindful of that. Parents have to have someone to keep their children. They have to work. And we had a superintendent one time, his motto used to be serve your public. And that was, we need to know to serve our public, we have to tell them something. We cannot wait till the last minute because people have to have childcare and they have to know what to do. So we cannot wait till the last minute.
Mr. McClendon. Do you want?
Yeah, go ahead.
You want Dr. Hollander to go?
No, I can go ahead and go.
Okay.
So one thing I've kind of realized in all the questions that we've gotten about this, and I talked to Colonel Brooks about this, about substitutes and teachers having, if there is exposure. And one thing that I've kind of come to the conclusion on, and that's kind of key for us, I think, is how do we ensure that our teachers can get tested in a timely manner? I know someone that had to wait 7 days just this week to get results back from the county. They're testing a lot more people, as we all know, and so it kind of delays it. Just capacity wise, it's out of their hands on it. But there are several other districts. There's one in Colorado. I sent an article to the task force today that they are partnering. I think they have clinics like we do. They're partnering with their clinics to offer testing with 1 or 2 day turnarounds or instant testing or rapid testing. I think if there is some way that we can partner with our health clinics that we just opened that are very beneficial to offer testing for our employees. One, it gives them kind of peace of mind of where they're going. We can kind of guarantee or, really work on return times. In return, that helps us with not having, teachers out of the classroom for 5 to 7 days. And so I think that's something that we can really explore, and it kind of, it solves not everything by any means, but it gives us, a little cushion on just the logistical side of reopening. And I also was wondering if we had an update on kind of how numbers were looking for option 1, option 2, option 3.
Yeah, so I can definitely give your first part. I know that Keith, Colonel has brought that to the table. That's something we're exploring in regards to rapid testing for teachers and just trying to wrap our arms around numbers and what that would cost. In regards to our numbers for choices, what we really are finding, we only really have about 20%. I think it's like 18.1 or 2% of our parents that have chosen so far. Most parents are going to wait until right up to that deadline to choose, and we understand that. So that's why we set that deadline, and would anticipate obviously next week, people really narrowing in on decisions.
Dr. Hollander.
Thank you. I've had several people ask questions, and I appreciate Mr. Fogelman and Colonel Brooks and their team putting a lot of things out. I think I've answered this correctly to several people. A teacher says, if I test positive, do I have to take sick leave? And you all mentioned that Monday, and I'm just reiterating so that teachers will know that. Correct me if I'm wrong, if they have 2 weeks at the national coverage, they don't have to apply for sick leave for 2 weeks. Is that right, Mr. Fogelman? On federal law?
That's correct.
Yeah, 2 or 3 other things that teachers and parents have asked that I think I know, but I want to be sure that you guys have it correctly. Hypothetically, in a secondary situation, we have a teacher has 5 classes, 30 kids per class. If one person comes up positive, do all 150 of them have a 14-day quarantine? If you follow what I'm saying, or does the teacher have it? If the teacher has it, do all 150 kids have a 14-day quarantine? And also, and follow up that I jotted down some notes that people have asked me. What if someone's in a household where someone lives has the COVID? And of course, that's a mandatory 14-day thing for people in that household. But I just wonder how you guys are dealing. You can let the public know, and we're dealing with that. Thank you.
Well, absolutely. So, Dr. Hollander, if I could ask you, if you would send us those questions, we absolutely, we're working on a frequently asked question document. That's good to know you're getting that feedback, because we can put that question on that FAQ. And if we don't have the answer right at the moment, we can make sure we work to identify the answer. And we'll get you those 2 answers specifically. But that also be great for us to include.
Those are the most prevalent. I've got 6 or 7 that they've asked me, but I'll get all of them to you.
Send them all, and we'll include them all. And then obviously those 2, we'll get those answers back. But that'd be helpful for us, because we're trying to make that FAQ as robust. I mean, obviously some of the questions we're getting multiple times, but we want to answer any and all we can.
I realize that you guys have an overwhelming test. I totally understand that. But the general public want to know what's going to happen, and some of that is determining what they do, whether they go how many skills at home or virtual, or they go back to regular class. And a lot of how we're going to deal with it determines what they're going to do on their deadline. So thank you.
Mrs. Hill.
Yeah, Steve, we definitely, I've been thinking of it as a chicken or the egg problem. You know, we want to know how is this particular part of the framework going to affect a classroom, but we don't know how many kids are being in the classroom. It's just very, very difficult. On the task force call today, we had a lot of those intricate questions being asked, and what the task force landed on as a best practice would be for us to encourage people to go to the hcde.org website and find answers in writing, because that's going to be our most accurate answer. Alternatively, there is the email address reopening@hcde.org. I believe that they're guaranteeing a 48-hour or less response time on questions. I think we as a board are getting a lot of the same emails because people are thoughtful and sending detailed questions to all of us through the website. And for a long time, I've been trying to answer them, you know, as best I can. But I think to make sure that we limit confusion within the public, the more we can send people direct to the website and direct to the district, the better, because then everybody's reading off the same playbook, so to speak. The other thing I wanted to show you guys is I have a constituent who is in a high risk category. Sorry, my dog, just the doorbell rang. High risk category. His wife would make him stay in the car when she went to the grocery store, and he was so proud of all the people wearing masks that he started his own public awareness campaign and is sending out these great bumper stickers, Masks Save Lives. That's from my constituent, Bob Gillen. And so just a reminder to everybody, you know, let's all start showing our masks off, because that's how we're all going to get back to school. Sorry about that dog, that Fran. She's trouble.
Mrs. Robinson, you had your hand up. Did you still want to speak?
Sure. You know, I just want to tell Keith and Nakia and Dr. Bryan, of course, or Dr. Johnson, of course, and several others, thank you for all the work that you're putting into this reopening plan. I mean, it has been such a bear. We've all been getting so many questions from parents that there's no way we can even answer. I mean, parents are at such a high, extreme level of anxiety and stress right now that I think that one of the best things we can do as public servants is also remind them that they're going to be fine, that their students are going to be fine, no matter what decision they decide to take for their child's first semester of school this year. And, you know, there's just no way for us to answer every single question that comes along. There will be no way for our leadership team to ever be able to answer every single question, because so much of this is fluid. But I guess on the other hand, on the same note too, same for our teachers. I'm seeing our teachers have so much stress and so much anxiety around returning to the classroom. But I've been really impressed with what Keith's team is doing with checking in with each teacher, finding out what their preference is for the school year, and, you know, moving toward the direction of providing, you know, emotional and mental health services to our teachers. So I wanted to say thank you for that. I think that as an employer, especially one of the largest employers in our county, one of the greatest things we can do right now in the state of a crisis is actually be there for our employees and, you know, just do what we can to make them or help them lower their anxiety around the topic. I had originally raised my hand about the FAQ. So I was told that there would be this long FAQ sheet created. I just wondered, what is the ETA on that being ready?
Like now. I'm literally in it as we're talking.
That's awesome. I can't wait
so
to
we're
see
getting
it.
ready to post it. I wanted to read it one more time. I'm the bottleneck for the team, but we've got about I think 6 pages of FAQ and another 4 pages of questions to answer. But we're going to go ahead and put out I think the first set that we've already answered, and then it's going to be a live document so that we will update it. Actually, I said 6. It's actually 9 pages of questions that we've answered, and then we've got another 4 pages of questions that we have not answered. we're going to post what we've answered so far, and then just keep updating the live document.
That is great news. I think that's going to make a very big difference. So thank you for that. I wondered, how are the principal conversations going so far? I know that principals have had a lot of questions that also, fall into the realm of not, we don't know, we haven't put the answers out there yet. I was just wondering, how are those conversations going?
Yeah, we continue to engage, and we're happy to talk about, kind of where we are. We continue to get 2 times a week. I know that Neely and her team engage with them a couple of times a week, and happy to update you all on just that progress.
So Tiffany, thank you for asking. We held a Q&A session today, and what's great about the system that we have is literally, if someone is not on the phone to answer the question in the moment, I will text and get them an answer typically before we hang up, or send an email to have an answer. And then our cadence is then to meet again on Tuesday, and we'll provide answers. And then we meet again on Thursday about any further questions. And it's really worked very well to be very responsive and immediate to give them the support that they need.
Mrs. Lennon.
Nikki, I had the same question about the fact sheet. I guess my biggest concern is that parents that don't have access to receiving that fact sheet, how are we going to get the information to our community members that possibly are in areas that don't have internet or computer access? How are we going to make sure that everybody gets the same information? I think that was one of my questions. And then my second question is the July 22nd, once we make the decision as to what phase we're in, Dr. Johnson, and then, whatever, if hopefully if our numbers, I hope this virus stops. I hope the numbers quit rising, but if they change dramatically one way or the other, if we make a decision for whatever phase 2 or phase 3, and then for some reason between July 22nd and August the 12th, would you make a change and change phases between July 22nd and August the 12th? Would you transition again, or would you stay in whatever phase you say on July 22nd? Would you stay with that phase?
Yeah. So to answer both those questions, I think in regards to our notification around which phase we're in, what we started 3 days ago was a daily update in regards to where we are from a phase standpoint. We were senior leadership's on the phone about 5:15 today, actually, up until almost a board meeting, and this was probably the last one of the last things we discussed. I see Neely smiling in the left corner of my screen, and she know what we were talking about. But we were talking about parents obviously wanting to know, and teachers and leaders wanting to know what phase we're in. And the real challenge, I think, as I shared earlier, 2 weeks ago, we were at 950 cases, and the active cases, and obviously the numbers have spiked a bit on us here over the last week and a half or two. And so it is an extremely fluid situation. So our goal is to update the public daily on where we are so that parents can really have an understanding. And then, really lean into, what we anticipate as far as opening on August 12th, towards the very end of July, very early August, and then start communicating from there. What we don't want to do is communicate that we're in a phase, and then I think to your point, come back a couple weeks later and say, oh, we were, and we'll do it if we have to, but we were wrong. We're going to have to be in phase whatever. And so, I want to be clear with this, and then we can set up some additional calls, and obviously we've got town halls and such. But I do want to be clear with this as a kind of final statement on my part. I think it's really, really important that we do everything possible to open the doors of our schools. I think it's really, really important. I begin to think about from March until May. There are so many kids, and we serve a diverse population of students. And we've talked about, inequities. We've talked, digital equity, digital divide that exists. There's a digital divide that exists. Even if we provide a Chromebook or a laptop to some students, they don't have Wi-Fi access. And that's in our urban core. That's in the northernmost part of our county. That's throughout our county in pockets. And so, we've got to address that. But we also, I just believe that, we've got to try to figure out a way. And so we've got to do that safely. And so, that will always be our overarching goal and focus as we go through the course of this next several weeks. And again, I think going back to, what we initially were saying, as a community, we have a responsibility to do our part to make sure that we can keep schools safe. So we're going to try not to move through phases. Actually, one of the questions I've been asking in town halls for feedback around, and I think Kathy, you were on that call, was asking parents what if we had to change phases, what kind of lead time do you need? Because we also understand, I'm a parent of an 8-year-old in Hamilton County schools as well, and we also understand that they have work schedules and you're trying to figure out care for your child and what's reasonable and makes sense. So we don't have all the answers. We're just being very clear about not having all the answers, but we want to hear the questions, and we will work to answer every question possible and work through this together as a community.
Mrs. Jones.
Dr. Johnson, kind of touched on some things I was going to touch on. I just want to say to the public and to our teachers and our staff and our administrators, our students, and just the community at large, none of us have been today. We've never been in a global pandemic. We've never known what it's like to try to stay in our houses and practice socially distancing from the people that we love, the people that we work with, the people that we worship with. I mean, we've never done this before. This is uncharted waters, and we are trying our best to do what we need to do as a district to educate the children of Hamilton County. And I don't even know if there's a right way or a wrong way. I mean, we're trying to find the best way that we know how in these circumstances. And sharing this because for the past couple of days, my heart has just been very heavy, and I've been having anxiety and worried and can't sleep because I'm trying to figure out what we need to do or what we can do better than what they've already done and recommended to us. And I don't think there's anything else they can recommend to us because we're trying to meet everybody's needs. We have parents that say they want their kids to go to school. We have parents who say they want their children to be at home. We have parents who say we want to do virtual. We have parents that say I work, so I need to have this flexibility. I don't work. They're not going to wear a mask. I want to know. I mean, we're getting all these opinions, and for as much as we don't want to try to do things from a systemic approach, because we're all mothers and fathers and grandparents, and there's a child in school that we love and care for, and we know what we would do for that individual child and or children, we still have to think about their classmates and their schoolmates and what that looks like for Hamilton County. And it's a lot. It is a lot, y'all. It's a lot. And I want people to understand that we don't take this lightly as a board, as a 9-member body. I don't think we take this lightly. None of us do. I don't feel that Dr. Johnson and the cabinet and the people that are trying, and the task force, the parents that are on there, I mean, everybody, nobody's taking this lightly. We're trying to do what's best for everybody. And there's a lot of criticism, and there's a lot of opinion about what people would do. But this is a lot, and we are trying to do the best we know how in a situation we all have never been in before, and meeting the needs and the desires that have been expressed by the parents and the community about the children of Hamilton County. And so I just would ask the community to show some grace in making a decision. I know it's hard because we all have a child that we love and we want the best for, and so that's why I think the options are great, because you get to pick what is going to be best for your household and your child and what you can do there. But I would just ask if you understand of showing some grace in making your decision for your family and your child. Show some grace to the people that are trying to give you the best options to do that. because we do carry this. All of us carry this. Everybody, I feel like, and even not pictured on this Zoom call, we carry what's happening right now and what that looks like on August 12th. Because we want that to be the safest thing for everybody involved. We worry about each and every person, from the bus driver to the person cleaning the cafeteria. I mean, we're worrying about all of y'all. But we also have mandates and legal things that we have to do in that same aspect. So I just want to share that, because I don't want people to feel, I mean, I see all kind of posts and I get all kind of calls. And I'm telling y'all, we are not these, I don't know who these people are y'all thinking we are, but we are not these people. We are not. And we are really concerned about doing what is right for the children of Hamilton County. And I just want to share that your children, when we say that they're our kids, they really are our kids. And we really feel that way in making the decisions for them. So I just wanted to share that from a decision-making aspect, so that everybody knows that we are concerned about you. It's not like we're just making decisions. We're not doing something for money. Like, nobody's trying to get a kid sick for $1. I mean, all the stuff I've heard, I'm like, that is not the case. We are not those kinds of people. And so I just wanted to share that.
All right, guys. Thank you all for being here virtually tonight. If we don't have anything else, we will adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.